On this Thursday night, fired up as Ontario's wildfires rage. Anger from people who fled the flames and say they had no help.
Why is the MNR so under-resourced and understaffed?
Complaints Ontario failed to plan for forest fire season. Bridging the gap the Concessions Canada is making to get the Gordie Howe Bridge open. Fired why Ukraine turfed its defense minister and why that's ignited protests. Plus, the soccer master versus the prodigy, a matchup for the ages, and the story of how they first met 19 years ago.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. After dozens of wildfires forced thousands of people in a number of remote Ontario communities to flee, and at least one says it received no help as they watched their community burn, the province has asked for federal assistance. The Prime Minister said today resources are being deployed.
The RCAF is providing search and rescue aircraft. The Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre is providing helicopters and will stand ready and will be providing additional assistance as needed.
The challenge is huge. There are about 860 active fires burning across the country right now. More than 180 of them are out of control. Almost all of Ontario is at high or extreme risk of forest fires, and more than 180 are burning there. The smoke has reduced air quality in Toronto and in U.S. cities further south to among the worst in the world. We'll have more on that in a moment, but we begin in Thunder Bay and the harrowing stories from evacuees. Vasilios Bellos is there.
We love you, Lac de Mille Lodge. We'll be strong. You do the same.
Lac de Mille Lodge owner Riley Isaacs LaForge wasn't sure there would be anything to come back to.
It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen. The smoke has been rolling around the area for a week, and it was far away. It was far away until it wasn't far away, and it was on us.
On Tuesday, they caught a break.
We were like fending off little fires in our campground. We were just about to give up, and then all of a sudden some helicopters rolled in. MNR did show up after the fire went through and set up a sprinkler system on our buildings. We're so grateful. 4
fishing lodges and campgrounds in northwestern Ontario weren't so fortunate. The majority of those forced from their homes now in Thunder Bay, where wildfire smoke blankets the city in a haze and presents serious health concerns. Among the evacuees are members of White Sand First Nation.
Why is the MNR so under-resourced and understaffed that they couldn't see fires that are happening so close to different communities?
The community says they were forced to organize evacuations themselves on Monday, arguing Ontario's Ministry of Natural Resources wasn't aware of the severity of the blaze threatening their homes. It was because of that, Mother Tina Dupuis decided she couldn't wait any longer.
I decided as a single mother that I'm going to pack my kids and go because I couldn't be stuck there, and there was no supports to fight it. So was there going to be any supports to take us out?
White Sand members say they're feeling support through donations at their accommodations, but there's no longer space in hotels for anyone else potentially coming to Thunder Bay. City Manager John Collins says now they'll serve as a place where evacuees can stay briefly before heading to southern Ontario.
The other options aren't great. When you're talking about things like perhaps a whole bunch of camp cots inside an arena, that's not an ideal situation.
A number of other communities in the region are being told to be able to evacuate at a moment's notice. That as the dry, humid conditions linger and the threat of the fires rage on. Donna?
Okay, Vasilios Bellos in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Thank you. Smoke from those wildfires continues to shroud multiple cities, including Toronto, where an air quality warning remains in place. It's expected conditions will improve tomorrow morning. The smoke has also drifted across the border, and warnings about unhealthy air are in place in a number of major cities, including New York, Chicago, and Minneapolis. 4 Republican politicians in Michigan have written to Prime Minister Mark Carney saying their patience has run out. They claim promises to mitigate wildfires in Canada have not been kept, and say American lungs are paying the price for Canadian inaction. Ontario's premier is facing criticism for failing to properly budget for forest fires. The government's slogan is Protect Ontario, and Doug Ford said this week no expense will be spared to help people caught in the fires. But as Eric Sorensen reports, the investment has to start with prevention and preparedness before the emergency hits.
As wildfires sweep across northern Ontario, many communities feel they're on their own. In Uppsala, community officials were blunt.
There really is nobody looking out for us as if, like some government agency somewhere that we are going to, so we're going to look after ourselves, basically.
More than 100 wildfires are burning in northern Ontario. There aren't enough first responders or equipment to cope.
We're throwing every single resource we possibly can.
Ontario's premier says he's sparing no expense fighting wildfires. But is it money well spent? Last year, the Ontario government spent $271 million fighting wildfires, but this year budgeted only $150 million.
So while our base budget might be $150 million, every year we spend significantly more.
That's the problem, say critics, treating wildfires like an emergency and not budgeting enough in the first place to be better prepared when fire season hits.
And then you can plan ahead. You could say, to the crews or the pilots, the shortage of pilots, you have a job this summer. We have the money ready to hire you. We don't have to go and fine you because we're treating this like an emergency.
60% of the country is covered by boreal forests. Fires are natural and inevitable. Experts say governments can mitigate the impact and tackle the costs by updating building codes and using fire-resistant building materials.
We put an awful lot of money into reacting after the fact. We don't put a lot of money in prevention at all. So we have a lot of exposure in this country. We're doing very, very little about the risk.
Glenn McGilvery says governments must better prepare for what we know is coming. Wildfires that will only be more frequent and more dangerous to human health and safety in the future. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
An out-of-control wildfire is also intensifying about 100 kilometers east of Halifax, Nova Scotia. It broke out last night, and crews are tackling it on the ground and in the air. In southwestern British Columbia, an evacuation order has been issued for the Boston Bar area, about 215 kilometers from Vancouver. Lightning and dry conditions are fueling two fires in the area, both of which are thousands of hectares in size. The village of Pemberton, north of Whistler, BC, is also on evacuation alert. An out-of-control wildfire, believed to be human-caused, is moving closer to infrastructure and is spreading quickly. The federal government intends to spend almost $2 billion over the next 4 years to buy 190 new armored combat support vehicles. They'll be made in London, Ontario, and will be used to support Canadian Armed Forces both at home and overseas.
If we're going to ensure a just and lasting peace in Ukraine, if we are to assert our full sovereignty in the Arctic, and if we're to defend and promote our values of freedom, democracy, peace, we must do so from a position of strength.
The deal is with defense contractor General Dynamics Land Systems. It has a factory in London, Ontario, and additional parts will be sourced from companies across the country. Thousands of jobs are expected to be created. The new armored vehicles will boost Canada's fleet to 550. At last week's NATO summit, Carney committed to sending another 35 armored vehicles to Ukraine to help in the fight against Russia. At that same press conference, the Prime Minister talked about when the newly built Gordie Howe Bridge between Windsor, Ontario and Detroit, Michigan will open. Since a deal with the U.S. was announced last week, it's not been made clear how much Canada conceded to the Americans to agree. Global News has new details about how the latest interpretation of that deal is expected to play out. Mackenzie Gray is following this for us. Mac, what have you learned?
The terms around the Gordie Howe Bridge deal have been very confusing, Donna, but one thing the Prime Minister has been clear on, that the U.S. wouldn't get any money until Canada was paid back for building the bridge.
It's not splitting the tolls of the bridge. It is an agreement for 15 years to split net revenues. Splitting of tolls, any sharing of the toll revenue won't happen until all of the debt is repaid.
But that revenue Carney references comes overwhelmingly from tolls, money that, despite Carney's claims, will flow to the U.S. before Canada gets the $6.4 billion it paid to build the bridge back. Two senior government sources tell Global News Canada will get 100% of the revenue from the new Gordie Howe Bridge. That will be used to pay for things like snow removal and maintenance costs, but not debt servicing charges. The money left over will be split with the Americans 50-50 for 15 years. Under the old deal, Canada got 100% of the money from the bridge until they were made whole. Carney's comments today are part of an evolution from the Liberals on the bridge deal. When it was first announced last Friday, a senior government source told Global News profits would be split with the U.S. 2 days later, Carney said Canada would get all of the revenue, including debt payments, before the U.S. got any money. Now, it's a 50-50 revenue split, despite the Americans spending $0 on the bridge. The Liberals defend the deal, saying they estimate in the first few years the bridge is open, revenue won't exceed maintenance costs, and that the U.S. money, which will go into an American-controlled regional economic fund, will help drive future traffic on the bridge. The Conservatives frustrated over the lack of transparency.
I don't know if it's because he's embarrassed. I don't know if it's because he thinks he knows better than us, but whatever the case is, just share the deal.
We've also asked for the text of the deal, but we're told by Carney's office it's only a deal in principle, and they wouldn't commit to sharing the agreement publicly ahead of the bridge opening on July 27th, a place we've been before, Donna, back in June, when a ribbon cutting to open the bridge was abruptly cancelled to extract more concessions from Ottawa.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray, thank you. Another project has been added to the list of potential projects of national interest, which means it could be fast-tracked. This time it's an upgrade to the Port of Vancouver.
This will increase West Coast container handling capacity by approximately 30%. It supports Canada's goal of doubling exports to non-U.S. markets by 2035.
The federal transport minister says the upgrades would center around a massive new container terminal, along with rail upgrades and potentially a terminus for a new oil pipeline from Alberta. The Port of Vancouver is Canada's largest. Its expansion could enable $100 billion in new trade capacity annually. A long-delayed rail bypass around the Quebec community of Lac-Mégantic has now been approved. The Canadian Transportation Agency says the Canadian Pacific Railway Company can build nearly 13 kilometres of new track and infrastructure around the town, which is about 200 kilometres east of Montreal. In July of 2013, a train carrying crude oil derailed. It barreled into town and exploded. 47 people were killed, and much of the town of Lac-Mégantic was destroyed. RCMP in Nova Scotia are investigating after a group of protesters surrounded the car Premier Tim Houston was in yesterday and someone smashed the windshield. It happened as the Premier was leaving an event at Acadia University in Wolfville. Police say they were called to provide support and led the Premier back inside a nearby building, then escorted him from the venue. In a video posted on social media, the Premier says while he respects people's right to peacefully protest, what happened was violence.
I think Nova Scotians know that I will engage with anyone. I will listen, and sometimes I will even change my mind based on those respectful conversations. This was not that. This was not the Nova Scotian way.
Police are trying to identify those who blocked the Premier's car, including a person who they say climbed on top of the car and broke the windshield. Ukraine's defense minister gets fired. Coming up, why his dismissal has people protesting. In Italy, 32 people have been convicted in relation to a bridge in Genoa that collapsed in 2018, killing 43 people. Victims' families packed the courtroom. Many broke down in tears as the verdicts were read. The former CEO of Italy's main highway operator was sentenced to 12 years in prison. It's the longest sentence handed down in the trial. It spanned 4 years. The tragedy exposed major lapses in bridge maintenance. 57 people face charges, including manslaughter, endangering transport safety, and falsifying documents. It was one of the worst infrastructure disasters in Italy's history. The Ukrainian president shook up his government today, and his decision drew thousands of protesters to the streets. Volodymyr Zelenskyy fired his popular defense minister. He says he had to make a tough decision after a breakdown of relations between government and military leaders. The war is ever present for Ukrainians. An afternoon attack killed at least 3 people in Zaporizhia after Russia launched highly destructive glide bombs. Redmond Shannon reports on the challenge of balancing competing priorities in an escalating war.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelenskyy honours the 4th British Prime Minister he's worked with in 4 years of war, before Keir Starmer is replaced next week. Ukraine itself also approved a new PM Thursday, Serhiy Koretsky. But it was the reshuffle in the role of defence minister that drew a reaction. Protests demanding that the popular Mykhailo Fedorov stay in the job at a time when Ukraine has regained battlefield initiative. Fedorov is credited with pushing successful drone technology and procurement methods, and of convincing Elon Musk to block Russia from using Starlink satellite communication.
This is exactly the new approaches that he was trying to implement that were clashing with this old way of doing business, these contracts, the lack of transparency.
In Kyiv, Fedorov confirmed that it was essentially a clash of ideas between him and the head of the armed forces, Alexander Syrskyi. He accused Syrskyi of blocking new initiatives, a general known for his more traditional battlefield skills.
The main achievement of Syrskyi is that he stabilized and he holds the front line.
Zelenskyy said because the men could not resolve their issues, he had to deal with it himself, later recommending the acting head of Ukraine's security service, Yevgeny Khmara, as the next defense minister. Ukraine's foreign minister said today that a potential future meeting between Zelenskyy and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin could take place in Turkey, but the Kremlin said there is no immediate prospect of talks. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
Beach buzz ahead. What happened after this move by America's Blue Angels? That was way too close for comfort. The U.S. Navy's elite Blue Angels buzzed Pensacola Beach in Florida yesterday. But today, the acting Secretary of the Navy said no one from the demonstration squadron will be reprimanded or face punishment after that low-altitude pass. One of the jets flew so low it sent sand, chairs, and umbrellas flying. The Navy did say it would conduct a safety review yesterday, and today said it was all just fine. The American president will deliver an address to the nation tonight, which is expected to focus on election integrity. He's always claimed without evidence that Joe Biden lost the 2020 election. And though TV networks traditionally preempt their programs to air a presidential address to the nation, this time it's expected at least two of them will not. Jackson Prosco reports on what Trump is expected to say.
With a primetime address, President Donald Trump could upend November's midterm elections.
It doesn't get bigger, because without free and fair elections, you don't have a country.
The White House says Trump will focus on election security, voting machines, and make allegations of foreign interference.
I think all Republicans and Democrats should recognize this should be a nonpartisan issue.
But conspiracy theories could also feature prominently, especially about the 2020 election Trump lost, but still claims to have won.
That's how I won 3 elections. I did very well in the second one, won it. It was a rigged election.
Republicans are increasingly frustrated with the president's fixation on the past, with issues like the economy and the war in Iran top of mind with voters.
Anytime you're looking back, you're not looking ahead, and I'm looking ahead to these elections, and the president should as well.
But many of the president's closest advisors are still towing the election fraud line. This was Trump's nominee for Director of National Intelligence under questioning by Congress Wednesday.
Who won the 2020 election?
I'm not going to do this with you.
The timing of it all is no coincidence. Trump has been pushing Congress to pass legislation known as the Save America Act before the midterms. The bill would require elections reform, including proof of citizenship, even though it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote.
I think it's likely the president's going to continue through disinformation and through various attempts to try to interfere in the elections.
Arguably, some of the biggest damage to the integrity of American elections has come from Trump's own efforts to undermine confidence in the vote. And it's still unknown whether the president will actually accept the results of November's midterms, especially if they don't go his way. Donna?
All right, Jackson Prosco in Washington, thanks. World Cup premonition next. Little did these two know they'd be facing each other on the pitch nearly 2 decades after this photo.
Maybe it's a good day to drown a few sorrows.
King Charles, like so many in the UK, is trying to get over England's loss in yesterday's World Cup semi-final. Argentina's late-game comeback sets the stage for an epic final against Spain. The big game will be full of star power. Argentina's Lionel Messi is still dominating the sport at age 39, and Spain's Lamine Yamal is just 19. The two players have never faced each other on the pitch, but they did meet almost 20 years ago in a photo shoot when Yamal was just a baby. Mike Armstrong explains.
It's one of the things that comes with celebrity. Famous people pose for thousands of photographs. Most are quickly forgotten, but every once in a while, a camera captures something no one could have predicted. From politics, there's a young Brian Mulroney with John Diefenbaker, Bill Clinton with John F. Kennedy, and in the sports world, there's the iconic shot of hockey legend Gordie Howe with an 11-year-old future legend Wayne Gretzky. But there has never been something quite as unlikely or impossible as this. Now, the adult is Lionel Messi. For nearly 2 decades, he wore number 10 for Barcelona, becoming arguably the greatest soccer player in history. Well, Sunday he faces off in the World Cup final against the player who currently wears number 10 for Barcelona, Lamine Yamal, a young phenom profiled last season by 60 Minutes.
Not yet licensed to drive, not yet liberated from wearing braces, but already the world, like the ball he dribbles, is at his feet.
Well, as it turns out, not long after he was born, Yamal's parents entered a draw. Winning families got to have their child pose with a Barcelona player for a charity calendar. And so, a young Messi was photographed with a baby that would one day walk in his footsteps. It was 2007, Messi was 20 years old, Yamal barely 5 months.
And that's a true picture,
That's a true
story, I think.
It's one of the most... No, it's
legit.
Now, that original calendar was to raise money for UNICEF, and both men are today Goodwill ambassadors. In fact, UNICEF posted on social media Thursday confirming the story, saying it's proud of them. It didn't pick a side for Sunday's game. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
And that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Fort McMurray, Alberta. We would love to see Your Canada. Please email it to us. And thanks for watching. Sarah McDonald will be at the Anchor Desk tomorrow, and I will see you again next week. Bye-bye.